a white woman who accused two black males of violating her. However, video showed contrary, and the charges were dropped. She's being sued for false arrest. Now she's countersuing them, saying contrary to the video, they did in fact violate me and force me into sexual conduct. Put up the picture full mask. This is a story with a lot of twists and turns. So a white woman who falsely accused two black men is now countersuing for $1 million. In an update, the white woman is now suing the black men. It's an officer and his friend, saying that they actually did violate her. So this is a lot. All right, so the white woman who was sued by a black cop and his friend for falsely accusing them of violating her sexually last November in Texas, this was Manvel, Texas, has now filed her own civil lawsuit against those two men, claiming that she now has evidence to prove that they actually violently injured her while holding her against her will. She seeks damages of at least $1 million. Let me get into the story. So according to her complaint filed in the county civil court on August 26th, Amanda Zawieruszynski, 40 years old, says on the evening they were socializing in her neighborhood, her community, and casual sex happened with partner John Marks, who's 41, and his friend Freddie Douglas, 43, a police officer. She says it turned unexpectedly violent when she refused to have three-way sex with the men in a swimming pool. She accuses the men of forcing her to drink liquor, ripping off her bathing suit, and taking turns violating her throughout the night, both in the pool and elsewhere inside the home of Marks, where she had earlier showed up with cupcakes to celebrate his new home and to enjoy a late night swim. She said she tried to escape many, many times, but the men refused to let her go or let her put her clothes on and blocked her from leaving until the next morning. Marks and Douglas were, in fact, arrested. They were arrested in December on charges of aggravated sexual misconduct and kidnapping. But the charges were dismissed. They were dismissed in May by a grand jury, which is rare. They were dismissed by a grand jury that viewed footage from Mr. Marks' home security system, which captured much of the men's interaction with Amanda in the pool and inside his home. Both men then sued their accuser, Amanda, and the city of Manvel for false arrest and other civil rights violations, claiming that the sex among the three was mutually consensual and that the video surveillance tapes proved it, period. They say the reputations and livelihoods had been ruined by the false accusations and wrongful arrest, which lacked probable cause. Douglas, a decorated detective with the nearby El Campo Police Department, was fired over the allegations. I want you to think about that. He was fired over the allegations. If he would have killed an unarmed black man, it would have been just fine. But let one white woman say, you violated me, there's no evidence. When evidence is presented, he's exonerated. Well, he's fired anyway, he got to go. He was accused. I just want you to marinate on that for a minute. Was fired over the allegations. Marks, a businessman, said he lost wages, he lost professional opportunities, and he lost his standing in the community. He was completely socially ostracized, according to him. Amanda told the Daily Mail in a statement that the grand jury that declined to indict the men, that they were not privy to important pieces of evidence corroborating her story, including a kit completed on the day of the alleged assault, medical exams that discovered tearing and internal bleeding, and images of of severe bruising on her body. That's according to her. Amanda has permanent physical scarring and experienced vaginal bleeding for months after the incident, the complaint alleges. Quote, she has required surgical intervention from the repeated sexual encounter and assault, according to the allegation. Quote, she has further required extensive physical and mental treatment as a result of the defendant's actions, it says. She also claims that one of the men's statements was improperly withheld from the grand jury by an assistant DA. Now, Amanda called the prosecutor's failure to present such evidence to the grand jury, quote, a strategic mishandling of the case that prioritized power and optics over the facts in the statement to the Daily Mail. Despite recent claims and circulation of a misleading and harmful narrative, it is clear that Miss Amanda was and did not consent to any sexual activity with the perpetrators, according to her attorney, Thomas Trey Kamek. His name is Trey. Said in a statement provided to reporters this week. Her lawsuit charges both men with sexual assault, aggravated sexual assault and battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, false imprisonment, willful detention, and conspiracy to lure her into their trap, get her drunk, and prevent her from being able to leave as they assaulted her. She seeks damages for physical pain and suffering, mental anguish, medical expenses, disfigurement, impairment, lost wages, legal fees, and exemplary damages. Amanda, a single mother who had separated from her husband earlier last year prior to moving to Manvel, said she had broken off a casual sexual relationship with Marks, her neighbor, shortly before the alleged attack took place, but had maintained a friendly relationship with him. She said she was compelled to come forward publicly after Marks and Douglas were acquitted of criminal charges related to the sexual assault, then filed lawsuits that included a misleading and harmful racial narrative that shifted the blame to her and represented that she was a racist white woman crying sexual assault by two Black men to avoid responsibility of her own behavior. Quote, the question of my experience is not just insulting, it is re-traumatizing, she added. I've chosen to reclaim my narrative by speaking truth to demand justice, not just for myself, but for all survivors, because allowing a false narrative to exist that diminishes this under the guise of racism is offensive and an injustice. We are aware of her alleged kit, said Michael Kerensky, that's the attorney representing Douglas. Quote, the findings of that exam are equally consistent with having consensual sex with two men, one of whom all night long. He said, adding that her counsel remained convinced that the video evidence will exonerate Douglas, the New York Post reported. Douglas categorically denied each of the allegations against himself and Marks in his answer to Amanda's legal complaint. Quote, unfortunately, Amanda's story about what happened that night continues to change. Kerensky stated in an email to Atlanta Black Star, quote, her new narrative and all the others are absolutely contrary to the objective video evidence that proves that her claim of sexual assault and kidnapping was fabricated, end quote. Quote, we find it ironic that she now is attempting to portray herself as a champion of women who were truly sexually abused or assaulted and were not believed. Amanda has done more damage with her demonstrably false claims to the plight of women who report actual sexual crimes than she will ever be able to repair with her new faux campaign. We look forward to putting her under oath and confronting her with the truth of what happened that night. So let's go back. There are a lot of words here, okay, a lot of words. One of the primary accusations is kidnapping and then sexual assault. So if you're being held against your will, okay, then that can be corroborated based on video evidence. The presentation of the video was given to the grand jury. It just so happened that Mr. Marks had a significant surveillance system in his home and outside of his home, which was able to capture everything that happened in the swimming pool and also everything that happened, much of what happened inside of the home. To the grand jury, typically will indict based on a minimum amount of evidence, looked at the video and said there's there's no kidnapping, and we don't see the assault. As far as the kid is concerned, you can definitely argue that. I mean, a defense attorney can argue that both ways. But here we go again. This is it's an interesting story. It's ironic as well. But Senator, typically, I'm the guy, like I don't want to be caught up in this. Well, I don't believe women. I typically 99% of the time will believe the accused, especially when there's some circumstantial evidence, if it fits, right? If we have history, right, with the defendant or the accuser, we understand this person's not going to lie, but here you got a video. You really don't get more concrete than that. What say you?
I'm sighing deeply, Doc. I mean, this is troubling either way. If any
Yeah,
of these things did happen, it's troubling. And if none of these things happen in terms of, and what I mean by that, it was totally consensual and she filed false claims, it's also troubling. I mean, the lives of these men have been disrupted. They'll never be the same again. On the other side of this, if anything that she's saying is true, then her life is disrupted as well. You're right, Doc. I mean, usually a grand jury, what you can get is what's the saying in the legal realm? They can get a ham
ham
sandwich.
sandwich. Yeah,
Yeah. So the grand jury, based on the video footage of what they could see, came to the determination that there was really nothing to see here in terms of the kidnapping. We do know historically, and I'm saying this to our viewers, I want to be very tight on this. It cannot be denied that the tears of white women matter more than the tears of anybody else, and that historically, especially black men and white women relationships have gotten many black men not only locked up but killed, lynched on false allegations, arrested in cases even when they are not killed. That is a historic pattern. That is not to say in this case, maybe there is something there. I hope that it's not, but it's very troubling that she ran to that. And the article put out there that she had a on again, off again relationship. I mean, sometimes when people's lives are exposed in this way and no judgment, I mean, grown consenting adults
yeah,
can do what grown consenting adults want to do. But sometimes people get a little embarrassed by it, or if you're not getting what you want, you make things up. There is a long history in this country. Let me put that out there too. That not only white women accusing black men of doing things that they didn't do, and white men lynching and going after black men for things that they did not do. Women in general, let me put that out there too. When they make accusations like that, historically sometimes have not been believed. The legal
right.
system skewed more masculine. Our job is to get to the truth. Like, I've never been one of those that believe anything that anybody says. No gender. I mean, as much as I would want my gender to be above it all, we have to follow the facts and go where the
Yeah,
facts lead us, and not just say that, oh, well, just because a woman said it, it makes it true. That is not necessarily the fact, because women are fallible. I hate to say it, ladies. We are just as fallible as men can be fallible. So I'm really saddened by this whole thing, Doc. Either way it goes, this is a bad, bad situation.
yeah. And I got to say, they were right on filing against the city because there
Absolutely.
was no probable cause, given there was no evidence presented at the time. They actually had exculpatory evidence that they
Yeah.
could have presented to show that this action needs to be adjudicated rather than an arrest warrant filed. So they were proper in filing against the city as well.